Good morning and welcome to the 2022 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals here from Saundersfoot in Wales. I'm Sarah Cook and I'm delighted to be bringing you the World Rowing broadcast today of our finals. Now I'll be joined by Peter O'Hanlon a bit later in the commentary box, and he's going to bring you some insights into the beach a little bit later on this morning. But as you can see, we've got fantastic conditions. Racing is underway and we couldn't ask for a better day of racing ahead. And boy, do we have some cracking events coming up for you today with some of the junior singles or solos, as they're better known in coastal rowing. And we'll be giving away some of the first medals of these beach sprint finals. Now, as you can see here behind me, we have the course set up. We have some preliminary races underway. We've had some time trials this morning and some of our repecharges, seeing some scalps really fall that I don't know that I expected to see, but that's coastal rowing and that's beach sprints, and we can't wait to see how these races unfold for the rest of the day. And I'm joined this morning by Gwyn Batten, Chair of the World Rowing Coastal Rowing Commission. And Gwyn, we call you, I'm not sure if it's to your face, but the mother of coastal rowing, because really this has been your brainchild, and we'd love to pick your brain to, I guess, understand a bit more about what's going on, because it is a relatively new discipline. Can you tell us a little bit about the history of coastal rowing and specifically beach sprints?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say, it's nice to be called the mother, but I'm just standing on the shoulders of the guys that went before me. But yeah, so coastal rowing pretty much came out of France in the late 80s. And then in the emergence of the multi-sport beach games in round about 2015, we designed a format that we could link both the beach and the sea together. And what you have here is today is beach sprints, beach sprint finals. It's just a really exciting format of coming off the beach into the water, around the cans, and then back up onto the beach.
And exactly how difficult is it to row in one of these boats?
What I say to people is many clubs buy these boats for their beginners, and what we do to make it difficult is we make it a really high octane race, put the athletes under pressure, and we put them on a beach with some waves and some cans in to turn around. And I think that's the bits that makes it difficult. Getting into a boat, you could probably get into a boat about 2 hours of practice, you could have a pretty good race. You'd get round without falling in on a calm day.
So you're maybe not going to win the World Championship, but you could certainly get around the course, which is great. And I think that's one of the really exciting things about this discipline is the accessibility, lower barriers to entry for the sport, which I think is why it's appealing for many developing nations, particularly as a Commonwealth Games now and hopefully Olympic Games prospect.
Yeah, so really exciting for us. We designed it specifically for the beach games and multi-sport events, and we're working really hard to try and get into those. I mean, I think for me, the developing countries, what we've tried to do is keep the complexity, really cost and complexity down, so that in it, hopefully, my real ambition is that one of the small island nations hosts World Beach Sprint Finals one day. Within 10 years, if we can do that, I'd be a happy woman. Just because all you need is a beach, some boats, and some umpires. Oh, of course, and some athletes.
Importantly, the athletes, and we look forward to seeing them in action today. We'll now head over to Peter O'Hanlon on the beach.
Thanks, Sarah. I'm joined here by Slovenian Olympic champion Iztok Chop, and we wanted to have a quick look at what makes beach rowing and coastal rowing different, and particularly having a look at the boats. Istalk's here with Felipe, the exclusive boat sponsor for the 2022 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Now, Istalk, what can you tell us about what makes these boats different compared to what we'd normally see at the Olympics?
Well, this is an ocean rowing boat, not a flat water rowing, so we are standing in front of the Beach Sprint Double, which is shaped, designed to be fast as possible on this short course with a lot of turns. So we can see low bow, which enables easier, let's say, and safer landing on the beach. It allows boats to go through the wave or over the wave, and you see boat is very shallow. There's basically nothing in the boat, so that helps the water if you hit the wave or go through the wave to exit from the boat, and enables athletes to row to get faster back into the rhythm.
Now let's actually have a look at it. So down here we've got the bow of the boat. Now Istalk, what is it that makes this bow special versus some of the other shaped bows that we see on coastal boats?
Yeah, we built two different bows. One facing forward, that is more like endurance, long distance rowing on ocean rowing, because it helps to steer in the waves. But this one helps much better to at the beach landing. So it stops, it doesn't hit the sand, it stops slowly, and that helps athletes to exit the boat faster and safer, of course.
So running down the boat, we can see some of the obvious things you'd expect to see in a rowing boat: the gates, the riggers, the seats. Any particular comments about why this is shaped as it is in the center of the boat?
Yeah, okay, boat, as anybody can see, boat is much wider. Then that allows us to build, let's say, separate riggers. So when you row, it's similar feeling the backwing rigger on the flat water rowing, but it gives open space to the athletes, which is yet again faster and, most important, safer exit and entrance into the boat. You can see shoes are plastic, adjustable size for beach sprint, basically open, so you can easily put your feet into the shoes and then easy pull them out when you have to run for the finish. So this is it, and boat is very wide, very shallow, so that allows boat to turn very fast around the buoys, and like I said before, to surf the wave as much as possible.
Amazing. Istalk, thank you so much for giving us a walk through of the boat. This is the boat. Let's have a quick look at the course that it races down. So we can see over here, the key thing about the course is that it's made up of 3 buoys and the beach. So the athletes start up here on the beach, and on the sound of the buzzer, they come running down the beach to the surf, and they launch themselves here next to where the flags are into the boat, and then they'll go careering down the course towards the first buoy. It's a slalom on the way out, 250 meters towards the last buoy, sorry. They'll go on the right of the first buoy, left of the second buoy, an anti-clockwise spin around the furthest buoy, and then straight back into the beach. When they come into the beach, they'll then go sprinting up the beach to the finish buzzer, which is in the sand, and that's why we get such amazing and dramatic finishes to these beach sprint races, because they've got to dive to try and hit that buzzer before their opponent, because it's a side-by-side race, a knockout competition. Such exciting stuff, and we're about to get into the first race in just a few moments. So loads to look forward to here at the 2022 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Let's jump straight back up to Sarah to get ready for that race.
Thanks, Peter. As we see a great shot there of Saundersfoot. You can see the marks on the course, those yellow pencil marks for the crews to slalom around. And then as we fly up the course, we will see the top marks that the crews will spin around before making their return to the beach. We're expecting great conditions this morning, a little bit of breeze, but that will build throughout the day and into the afternoon, which will make things a little bit trickier for the crews out there on the water. And we can see the starting area. So this is the beach sprint component. This is where the athletes will run down to the water and run up to hit those buzzers in the stand. Of course, bringing together these two elements of the beach sprint start and finish, and then the sprint on the water. A great shot looking up the course there. The first pencil marks that the crews will have to pass around as Pete walked us through. And we are a few moments away from the first of the races this morning, but we understand there's a slight delay. And we will get that information to you as soon as we can. Some of the boats heading out for some training this morning. We can see a picture there, the quads, a quad there getting into the boat on the left-hand side of your screen. We will see the quads in action this afternoon for their quarterfinals, semi-finals and finals. So the progression for the racing today. Up first we have the junior men's coastal solo. We'll be going through the quarterfinals, then into the semi-finals and then into the finals. And we just have a 5-minute delay on the start of that first event this morning. In our coverage this morning, we'll just be bringing you the one event, the junior men's solo, but this afternoon we'll have a few action-packed races ahead, including the junior women's single or the junior women's solo, the mixed quads and the mixed doubles. As we can see there, the weather conditions for Saundersfoot here in Wales, about 14 degrees today, but we know that breeze will be building. It's great to have some sunshine this morning, which I think everyone on the beach is enjoying. There's music pumping down there and the sun's out. So it always makes for a good day, doesn't it, Pete?
I'm back. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, it's beautiful here in Pembrokeshire, isn't it? I mean, you look out here over the coast and you can see Amroth over on the far side of the bay, and absolutely stunning conditions this morning. You couldn't hope for better, calmer or flatter. We're looking here at some of our course commentators, Camilla Hadland-Horrocks and James Scotty Scott. We've had an absolute mix of weather through the last week building up to these beach sprint finals, but it's a pretty nice way to start the weekend. I mean, we had a lot of time trials and races, repêchages through the course of yesterday, but now that we see Saundersfoot and Pembrokeshire in its most beautiful light here with the sun, it's absolutely stunning conditions. Just the smallest of waves for them to have to contest with getting into the boat. Not long until we get started. They're just transitioning from the time trials of this morning. We're looking forward to watching Great Britain's James Cox on the right of this picture with Mark Moses from Peru. This is the first of the 4 quarterfinals for the under-19 men's solo to look forward to. We're about 20 seconds away from this race getting started, and that's what I love about the beach sprint finals, is just the sheer knockout component of it. From the last 8 competitors, that's what makes it a power endurance event, isn't it? I mean, they go through the quarterfinals and then they're straight into the semis and straight into the finals. Barely any delay whatsoever between the next round. So it can be really tough, particularly if you're in the last of the quarterfinals, and then you've only got a small gap while the other semi-final takes place before you're then competing in the second semi-final if you make it through, and then straight into the final with pretty much no rest.
Yeah, that's right, Pete. It is a fast and furious progression, and once these races get underway, you'll see that these athletes will be racing multiple times, in very close, I guess, succession between the races, to then hopefully progress to the all-important finals, where the medals will be awarded for this Coastal Junior Men's Solo here at the 2022 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. We can see the boats being carried into the water, and we should talk about the boat handlers here, Pete. It's an interesting position because it's not one that we see in the other disciplines of rowing, because they're not quite athlete, but not quite coach. They're sort of an in-between role and very much a part of the team, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. They play such an important role. I mean, you can see here they're setting up the boat for the Peruvian Mark Moses on that side, and they'll hold the boat steady, make sure that the blades are in the right orientation, squared in the water. Looks like we're about to get going. Umpire flag drops. They're allowed to start on the drop of the flag, and it starts with this sprint down to the boat. And this is the all-important bit that the boat handlers play. They're holding the boat steady, oars ready, handing the oars over, and then they can give it an almighty shove to try and get their boat speed up and break through those early waves that they might face in the surf. Looks like a good start here, though. I mean, James Cox was the fastest. He won the time trial in the earlier rounds, so we're certainly expecting big things from him. He's the fastest of the 8 athletes that made it through to the quarterfinals, and the way that the seeding works is he faces the slowest from the time trials, which was the Peruvian Mark Moses. So we're expecting the British athlete here to win, but anything can go wrong. You go the wrong side of one of these boys, Sarah, and that's it. It's basically race over, isn't it?
That's right. So time penalties are afforded if you pass on the incorrect side of those markers. But a great push here from the Peruvian, who I think, as they're coming past us here, has perhaps drawn level, but he did catch a little bit of water. You can see, and what a great shot that is. You can see the boat handlers here in front of us, and they're able to signal to the rowers as they're going down the course which side of those marks they need to go to ensure that they don't get a time penalty. They can hit the marks with their boat or with their oars, but they cannot pass on the incorrect side of it. As we see the 2 solos pass around the top mark now, and a great mark rounding there from James Cox, I think really showing his fantastic boat handling skills to get around that mark really efficiently. And maybe he's got a little bit of a push there from the swell that's building.
Yeah, that was textbook. You can see that, as we'll see through the course of the day, the different techniques that the different boats and boat classes and athletes have for getting around that final turning buoy. His technique was to slam the anchor in on the inside with his right-hand blade and just absolutely hold it up there whilst continuing to row around the outside. He seems to have got a perfect line back into the beach. We've seen that through the last couple of days. It's been quite tricky for them to orientate themselves once they're around that turning buoy, because they're looking out at an open sea horizon. They've got nothing to anchor their stern to make sure that they're facing directly back to the beach. And when you look back at the beach from 250 meters away, it's just a mess of people. Lining up straight to your flag on the beach is so tricky.
Well, I can see that the British boat handlers have these fluoro long sleeves on, and that's a really good shout, because how clear is that then for the rower to be able to see when you're just turning around to look? But we can see here James Cox sprinting up. He hits the buzzer in the sand, gives it 2 hits for good measure. And the Peruvian sculler, Mark Moses, sprinting up, diving and rolling in the sand there, as we have this first quarterfinal done and dusted in the junior men's solo.
Impressive stuff. The James Cox from Queen's Park High School Rowing Club. I think we expected him to do very well in that first round, and he's shown his true caliber. So that's Mark Moses representing Peru. He's out now, but an impressive performance nonetheless for any athlete to make it into the final 8 in the last 8 for the under-19 men's solo. And it's quick order that we run through the progression, because it's straight into the next quarterfinal. Just 5-minute intervals we're running between the races. And lining up here, we've got Brian O'Leary from the USA and Marwan Mohammed for Egypt.
And I think that's what makes this so exciting and so efficient to run as a discipline, Pete, because we're going to get through all of these races. The medals are going to be awarded very shortly, relatively speaking, somewhere around 11:30. So we don't actually have that much time before we're going to be finding out who is going to be the world champion for this year in the junior men's solo, which is really exciting.
It's what I love about this format, right? You basically go through the whole boat class all the way to crowning the world champion in the course of an hour, and you watch them race their 4 quarterfinals, 2 semi-finals, and a final. You've got 7 races in the course of an hour, and the winner will have raced 3 times in that hour. So it really shows it as a power endurance sport.
And I think that's one of the things,
for people who are, I guess, more accustomed to classic rowing or flat water rowing is that this still has that both the technical component, which is rowing. So coastal rowing is the sculling discipline to us, so that differentiates it to perhaps surf boat, which many people would know about, that which is sweep rowing, of course, and doesn't have a sliding seat like rowing has. But additionally, there is still that endurance component to it, because although they're only racing 500 metres on the water each race, they're going to have to do that multiple times, as you've said, Pete. But we're away here in this second quarterfinal, USA versus Egypt.
Yeah, the USA, Brian O'Leary, the only returning athlete from this boat class last year, where we saw the beach sprint finals contested in Oeiras, Portugal for 2021. Tricky start here. Oh, nearly tipped in. We've seen quite a few athletes.
Oh, he's come off his seat. The Egyptian
It's disaster
sculler
coming
has
off his
come
seat.
off his seat. Oh, devastating.
I think he's gone to the wrong side of that first buoy as well now, so that's going to be a 30-second penalty on top of it. So that's looking like race and event over. There's no real coming back from a 30-second deficit unless the worst happens for Brian O'Leary. I think he's realised that. Marwan Mohammed here knows that he's come off his seat and missed the first turning point. The penalty is severe for such a short race.
So we see O'Leary there on the right-hand side of your screen. He's come around that second marker now on the correct side. He's now moving across to ensure that that turning point is going to turn on his stroke side. And he's done that really well, hasn't he? He hasn't gone too far past the mark.
Looks like he's conserving a bit of energy there. Not as aggressive in the turn as we saw James Cox, but James Cox was under pressure from the Peruvian because they arrived at that final turning mark at the same time. But we'll know here that Brian O'Leary will have seen that Mohammed, the Egyptian, went the wrong side of that first turning point, so we'll have to make up a 30-second deficit, so he'll know that he's basically through to the next round. Impressive stuff from O'Leary, the athlete from Port Charlotte, Florida. We'll certainly see him progress to the next round, where he will face James Cox from Great Britain from the previous quarter.
But it's a great comeback here from Marwan Mohammed from Egypt. I mean, look how much he's closed this gap, Pete. He must be devastated, because I don't know if it's adrenaline or if he, is just having a really great race now, but he really has closed the gap to the leading American sculler, O'Leary. But a great mark rounding and also performance here from the sculler from Egypt, but he's really going to struggle with that time penalty.
It's great sportsmanship when you see somebody sort of come back at it like that, despite knowing that they'll be down. They still give it absolutely everything until the final buzzer or crossing the finish line. See how they handle the dismount here then. It's always tricky stuff if you've got a wave on your stern, tipping your bow in towards the sand, but that's no issue whatsoever for Brian O'Leary. He's going to jog up the beach and take the win in this second quarter for the under-19 men's solo.
Yeah, so that's ideal for him to be able to have a little bit of luck there, I guess, and be able to conserve some energy for the upcoming rounds, because we know that the gaps are going to get shorter and shorter as they progress through to semi and final.
Tricky stuff. What would you be doing in this situation, Sarah, between races? How do you maximise your recovery with such a short bit of time?
It's a really interesting one, Pete, because you want to get that lactic out. You've just done a sprint, so I guess probably gently walking or perhaps jogging up and down the beach to help clear some of that lactic, getting some sustenance on board to ensure that your blood glucose isn't going to drop too low. So I imagine sports drinks or gels or things like that that are easily digestible are going to be really important. Keeping hydration up as well. So the recovery between the rounds is really, really key.
Looking now to the next race, the other side of the bracket, we've got Evan Kailau for France alongside Simon Carlson of Sweden. Kailau for France won the French trials to earn his seat here as the under-19 men's solo for France, so we'll have hot expectations on him when we look to the progression.
I love that with the music playing, we can see some of the umpires and some of the volunteers having a bit of a bit of a boogie there on the beach. It is really a different environment, a different vibe that we have here, and the athletes a bit jittery there on the start line.
Just looking at the results from the time trial, Kylao was 15th out of 16 because he got a 30-second penalty as he was going around the race. So if he'd knocked that 30 seconds off, he would have still been a little bit quicker than the Swede alongside him. So this could be quite a close one in this quarterfinal, considering the way that they do the progression is they try to line up the fastest from the previous round with the slowest from the previous round. But this, because of that penalty, sort of upsets what we're seeing here. That means that we've got the French athlete alongside the Swedish athlete, and the French athlete would have been 7 seconds quicker had he not incurred that penalty. Let's see if his steering can be a little bit better now that he's through to the knockout rounds.
Boat handlers there checking the boat, making sure the seat's on the track. It's quite a long hold here from the starter. The athletes have been called to attention. Obviously a delay. And we're away.
There we go. Let's see who handles the boat entry smoothest. It's tricky stuff because you immediately get your feet wet and you're stepping into a boat. You don't want to be slipping around. We saw a few people's shins get clobbered by the sides of the boat as they ran into them through the course of yesterday. Oh, this looks like it's going to shape up to be a close one.
And it's really interesting when you're sprinting down to the boat because you've got so much adrenaline. It's not like flat water rowing where it's a very, I guess, routine sort of start sequence. To actually be physically standing there, athlete on athlete, with the crowd around you, the nerves really get there, and then you have this sprint, you come down, you're trying to fiddle to get into the boat, and so I know when I've done it, it's been thinking, no, calm down, just breathe, because actually if you were a little bit more measured, then you can sort of take that time to get in more purposefully and away quicker rather than sort of jolting as you get in. So it is a very different discipline for those who are used to doing classic rowing, as certainly I was. But
I just love the risk
look at that
involved
turn
in
there.
it. That is so aggressive. I mean, that is exactly what you want to see. Let's see how he lines himself back up for the beach now. Perfect trajectory. It's one of the tricky things when they're setting off from the beach is when they're getting in and they're trying to take that first stroke or two. All it takes is a small wave to just push their bow 10 degrees off course, and that's why the boat handlers are so crucial to set them up and correct for that towards the first buoy.
I think I need a lesson from this French sculler, Evan. Down, so this is going to come down to the landing, the dismount, and the sprint.
Yeah, you can see on the beach the two blue flags. They've each got a flag that they need to run around before making their way up the beach. That ensures that they all have an even distance or a minimum distance on the beach that they've to cover before making their way up towards the buzzer. And it looks like a great course set up here by the Frenchman, Evan Kylao, who's now being directed by his boat handlers to go around the correct side of his flag. And it's going to be a victory to Evan Kylao for France. He'll progress on then to race. That was close, wasn't it? Not much in it in the end.
Just
second.
Doubled over in pain as we see Kylao there, just getting in ahead of the sculler from Sweden, Simon Carlson. Wow, what a race for this quarterfinal three. And we were talking about being able to conserve for the next round. Wow, Kylao really had to work hard for that one.
Okay, quarterfinal.
That's going to get expensive coming into the next round for Kylao.
Tunisia, lane 2.
Last of the quarterfinals now. Owen Knowles of the Netherlands alongside Mohamed Rayan Hafsa for Tunisia. So much prep to make sure that they rake the sand out because they make such big divots in them when they come careering in. Looking at the times from the time trial for this event, the Dutch athlete did a 2:47.7 to the Tunisians 2:49, so 2 seconds separated them from the time trial. So they'll know there's not much in it when it comes to this knockout series now. Tunisian beat the Italian in the previous round in the repechage 6. The Dutch athlete beat the German by 10 seconds, 11 seconds in fact, in the third repechage.
As the rain's starting to come down here now in Saundersfoot, I think we were very happy to get the sunny morning in, and perhaps the weather has been a bit better than we expected it to be, but the rain's starting to drive down now as the breeze starts to pick up. Mohamed Rayan Hafsa from Tunisia, Owen Knowles from the Netherlands. Wow, you can see that breeze is really starting to kick in now.
Just popped outside for 2 seconds to shut the door. I'm soaked. It's coming down properly thick and fast. Makes it just that much harder for these athletes to navigate, looking out into the rain crashing down around them.
And Peter, I'm going to say it for the first time, and people will be sick of it by the end of our broadcast, but that's coastal rowing.
That's coastal rowing. Do you know what I've loved about the course of this week, Sarah, is that every time I bump into a coastal rower who's grown up with coastal rowing versus a flatwater rower who's grown up with flatwater rowing and converted, the coastal rowers love this. They want the weather. They don't want the flat conditions. See the start here. He had a really good start yesterday. I was watching Mohamed Hafsa racing against the Italian, and he had a really lightning quick start. It looks as though now he's up against the next tranche of or tier of competition. It's going to be a lot closer. They were both separated by only a second in the previous round.
What a comeback here from the Tunisian. He had a bit of a shaky start, but he's now firmly in the lead over the sculler Owen Knowles from the Netherlands. But Tunisia have such an incredibly strong and committed coastal rowing program, really building over the last couple of years. And it's fantastic to see them performing so well, particularly in the junior events.
I really like watching Hafsa's racing style. He makes it look effortless, but he's got quite a high rate of striking there. And he's coming up towards the turning point here, and he just looks like he's out for an afternoon Sunday scull. Look at this. He's coming up, just checking where the boy is. Good aggressive approach, continuing to row around on the far side. Let's see how he tackles the lineup. Quick peek over to see where his competitor Owen Knowles from the Netherlands is, and it looks that there's not much separating them here, Sarah.
No, it was a great mark rounding actually from the Dutchman, Owen Knowles, who I think has brought himself back onto terms now with the Tunisian, so everything to play for. Oh, a bit of an air swing there for Owen Knowles from the Netherlands as he's looking across at the sculler from Tunisia. What an exciting race this is here as they're coming down to the last 150 metres or so. Once again, I think it's going to come down to those last few waves into the beach, the dismount and the sprint. Everything to play for here in this final quarterfinal of the junior men's solo.
Look at this. I can't believe it. They're absolutely neck and neck coming up towards the beach. How are we going to split them? We've lost the drone because the rain's coming down now. I think there's about half a length in it to the Dutch athlete, but it's all going to be about where they come into the beach and if one of them has to go the far side around their flag.
And the Tunisian sculler, he's managed to get on a wave. He's had a wave that has helped propel his boat in. His boat really sped up coming in, and they are going to land together, and the Tunisian is out of the boat first. That is coastal rowing.
That is coastal rowing. Absolutely amazing turn of events to see him manage to land that so well. That's the difference between an experienced coastal rower who could feel that wave and use it to his advantage.
It was amazing to see his boat get picked up by the wave. He knew how to stay on it, how to move with it, to be able to take that advantage and the speed that gave him coming in, which really just propelled him right past the sculler from the Netherlands.
Wow, so in the next round we'll see the Tunisian face Evan Kailau of France. 2:37. If he'd done that in the time trial, it would have been the fastest of the time trial races. But of course, because the tide moves so far here in Saundersfoot, a 300-metre tidal range, we can't really compare races from one day to the next, because obviously the more time they spend on their feet, the slightly quicker their time's going to be. So that's the quarterfinals all done. We're going to wind back round now to see James Cox for Great Britain alongside Brian O'Leary for the USA in the first of the two semi-finals. That's where it gets spicy now, starts to narrow down the knockout field towards our medalists, because of course we're going to have an A final and a B final, and the winner of these two semi-finals will progress to the A final. The runner-up in each of these two semi-finals goes to the B final, where they'll contest for the bronze medal. And lots to look forward to as we were hearing the schedule for later on this afternoon. That's the quarterfinals done, so we're going to have a quick look at some of the highlights from this first four races in the under-19 men's solo before we continue on to see who's progressing for medals.
And it's a bit of a topsy-turvy old day here, of course, starting out with beautiful sunshine this morning. The rain came belting through, but the sun is out again as we're reliving some of these quarterfinals of the junior men's solo.
Yeah, that was quite a brief but very aggressive rain shower that came through just for their race. They've upset someone in the sky with, for the rain to come down only for their 3-minute race. Sun's back out now, though, as we see the recap here for, that was the USA's Brian O'Leary alongside Marwa Mohammed for Egypt. And this was the start where Evan Kailau for France. They were very evenly timed when it came to their time trial, looking at France and Sweden. That's what beach sprint racing is all about, that dive for the buzzer.
Fantastic quarterfinals this morning at the 2022 World Rowing Coastal Championships and Beach Sprint Finals. We're into the last 2 days and the all-important medal races coming up as we move now into the semi-finals of the junior men's solo.
First semi-final of the under-19 Coastal Solo. James, are there any changes that you're going to make to this semi-final from your quarter-final given the changing conditions out there?
No, not really. Just stay relaxed. That's all I can do.
Amazing. And how does it feel to be competing at home championships?
Yeah, pretty good. Just go with it and hope we come out top.
Wonderful stuff. Well, look, best of luck there. That's Great Britain. And next up, I've got Brian O'Leary of the USA. Brian, how did that feel out there? You got quite a big advantage in that race.
Yeah, it was pretty good. It got a little windy and rough for the both of us, but I'm looking forward to another good race. So.
And were you aware of the problems that were happening with the other athlete? That
Saw them, and I decided to take advantage, and I took off right from there.
Amazing. Well, look, best of luck. That's the USA who will be competing in this next semi-final. Great Britain versus USA in the under-19 Coastal Solos.
Great to see both of those athletes getting themselves prepped for this semi-final in just a moment's time. We've got Brian O'Leary, who I mentioned earlier, from Port Charlotte, Florida. He won silver at the junior mixed double sculls and reached the quarterfinals for the junior solo event last year at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals in Oeiras. The only one of the athletes who's returned to compete. He didn't make it into the school's soccer team, varsity soccer team, so he thought he'd give rowing a go, and he was the US Beach Sprint National Team Male Athlete of the Year for 2021. So a lot of eyes from the US will be eager to see him perform at his absolute best. That's not what we saw in the quarterfinal, because as we just heard from Camilla, he managed to ease off the brakes slightly, or ease off the pressure slightly against Marwa Mohammed, who had slight technical difficulties getting off the beach. Now we'll have to see them perform at their absolute max effort. Great Britain were the fastest from the time trials. That's James Cox. He did a 2:45 compared to Brian O'Leary's 2:47, so there's 3 seconds in the end. Separating just under 3 seconds based on their time trial performances in the same conditions. So we'll watch how they get on now in this semi-final. Winner will go on to be a certain medalist if they make it into the A final. And runner-up in this race will go on to try and compete for the bronze.
No hocus pocus, only focus here. Pete, taking that from James Rook, who commentated at our Australian Coastal Champs. But we see James Cox there.
There we go. Oh, he was ready to go there. Brian O'Leary out like the clappers. Let's see how they handle their boat entry. What's their technique? Bum on seat first, feet in whilst grasping the blade. And their boat handlers, they've given them a shove off. I'd say that O'Leary made the better of that start.
Oh, and the American has come off his seat.
Quickly recovered, but that's opened the door for James Cox to try and move up. Let's see how they handle the first buoy.
Oh, and a bit of a difficult mark rounding there for the British sculler James Cox, which I think has cost him. Now it's allowed for O'Leary to get back in the door. So this first semi-final full of action already.
Yeah, this is amazing. I mean, there's so many different ways you can tackle those buoys. You can try and avoid them altogether, but that means you've got to take a wider route to go around them, or you can try and hit it with your... Oh, that's James Cox just making it to the correct side. That looked like he was going to go around the wrong way there. And you can either try to take the buoys wide and not touch them with your blade at all, or you can try and confidently hit them with your rigger and have it flattened. But if you get that slightly wrong and it hits your blade, it's so tricky. Let's see how they handle this aggressive turning. James Cox was absolutely rapid in the previous round. It looks like he's made the best of it in this semi-final, but they're pretty much level here, Sarah.
Yeah, both of these scullers have really nailed the turn, and it's going to come down to the last couple of 100 metres here in this final stretch. Will one of them be able to catch a wave and get that advantage as they come into the shore? So there's a nice little wave that's starting to build probably from that first pencil mark. So will one of them be able to get the advantage of catching that in?
Yeah, that's where the experience comes in, them feeling it build from this point onwards and see if they can ride it all the way into the shoreline. That's what coastal rowing's all about, bearing in mind that the tide is starting to move out and will only accelerate in its retreat as the morning goes on. Look at this, there's nothing separating them into the last 100 or so metres. I think there's perhaps just over a length.
Oh, and I think the British sculler has got a wave here. He has got the momentum. Look at his boat just absolutely propel away from O'Leary. O'Leary looks like he's standing still. James Cox, expert, getting onto that wave to give himself the advantage coming in as he sprints up to the beach, and he has absolutely dominated that in the dying metres of that race.
Look at that, 2:32. Blisteringly quick time. A lot of support, as you'd expect, for the Brit here on local home turf in Saundersfoot. A lot of fans, and we see now Brian O'Leary, that's the end of the competition for him, but a valiant effort nonetheless, getting himself through to this semi-final. We'll see him go through now to race the B final against the runner-up from the next semi-final between France and Tunisia. So it's not all over just yet for Brian O'Leary. Still an opportunity for the bronze.
But it's been great to see the coastal rowers really shining through in this event, knowing how to work those waves, get a bit of speed as they come into the beach to give them that advantage.
Beautiful but constantly changing conditions here in Saundersfoot. I love the shot of this. You know, the sun's out now and we can see the Gower over in the distance, but as the weather will roll in this afternoon, we'll see how it goes and what that means for the athletes. They'll all be checking the tide times furiously to see what's coming up this afternoon and what the wind might be doing and how that affects their race plan or strategy.
Okay, second semi-final. France, lane 2, Tunisia, lane 1, 3 minutes.
3 minutes, it's tough, isn't it? They've got to stay warm whilst they remove the lactic acid and get ready for the next race. It's an absolute hive of activity on the beach, and it makes quite a nice atmosphere over there if you've been and watched some of the racing over here in Saundersfoot so far through the last week, because of course we had the Coastal Championships last weekend, into the beach sprints this weekend. It's a lovely atmosphere over there. Everybody very supportive. We were talking earlier about the boat handlers, and quite frequently we see athletes from different nations holding boats for athletes from all sorts of other nations, because it's quite quite a community around the beach sprints that's formed in the coastals to make sure that everybody enjoys the racing.
And what a matchup this is going to be in semi-final 2. Mohamed Rayan Hafsa from Tunisia up against Evan Kalu of France.
Kalu had a very fast repechage in the previous round, did a 2:59, beating the Spaniard by 0.04 of a second. It was an amazing dive to the line. We saw them both clatter in and land almost on top of each other, trying to smack that buzzer. Nobody knew who'd won because it was just 0.04 of a second separating them. But the Frenchman came out on top. Tunisian did a 3:01.52, beating the Italian in that round by a good 13 seconds. So he hasn't had a close finish like we've seen Kylo have to perform. So we know that Kylo has it in the tank if he needs to pull on it for that final sprint up the beach. It's amazing how much they give to the race out there on the water. We saw some of the athletes barely able to walk, let alone run up the beach yesterday. Their legs absolutely smashed from the effort out on the water.
It is incredibly difficult, that beach sprint component at the start and the finish, and then 500-metre sprint in the boat as well.
Running on sand's not easy. I know we've all done it before, but when you've got all that lactic in your legs from the water component of the race, seen some people really trying to sprint but basically waddling up the beach at the end of their time trials yesterday. Here we go. He was quick off the mark, the Tunisian, in the previous quarter-final where he beat Owen Knowles, but let's see how they handle the boat entry now. The waves starting to build, certainly bigger than they were just an hour ago this morning in Saundersfoot. Pretty much level coming up towards the first buoy. Let's see if they go the correct side of it. Yeah, no issue there. Navigation.
Yeah, navigation, a key component of coastal rowing, both the beach sprints and the endurance format that we saw last weekend. It is a really key component of this sport, much like sailing, the navigational aspects, and hence the slalom going up the course in the beach sprint.
The Irish usually the masters that we see at most of our coastal events. Oh, that was nearly the Frenchman in. That was a bit of a tip. Well recovered, coming out towards the third and last buoy that they're going to pivot as quickly as they can around, see what they've got left in their tank. They only raced 20 minutes ago or so.
And we know that the French sculler had a really, really tough race against the Swede. So he's, I think, hurting at this point in time. It's been a very short recovery as we get a great overhead shot there. We can see that the Tunisian is just ever so slightly in the lead. Once again, it's going to come down to who can make the most of these waves as they're coming down to the last 150 metres or so.
Yeah, straight line into the beach. How can they take advantage of the wave phases that are coming in? The really astute athletes out there will be looking at how many waves there are in a phase. What does that look like at the moment just before their race? They won't just be focused on their own physicality. They'll be thinking about what are the waves doing, what sets are they coming in at, and what frequency, so they can be considering what that means for their return leg. And it's tightened back up again. It's down to less than a length now as they pass us here, sat on the harbour wall. Is less than a length, so a really powerful return from Evan Kailau. This is going to be another big sprint up the beach. Let's see how they land, because they've got to go around their flag. So if you land on the wrong part of the beach, it just increases the distance that you've got to go up the sand and perhaps in the wrong direction. I think the Tunisians made the best of that landing.
Yeah, I don't know that either of them got waves, but the Tunisian really took his rate up. You can see his smaller framed, and he was just able to keep that beat up, move quickly, and now sprint up the beach. What a incredible finish there from Hafsa of Tunisia.
Just another great great demonstration there of how much that means to these athletes to be contending for a World Championship title here in Saundersfoot at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Final.
Tunisian handlers chuffed to bits with that, weren't they? He's certainly their, I think that he's their strongest medal hopeful. Well, he's certain for a medal, that's what we can tell you. Will it be gold or silver? That's the thing. I mean, it would be tough to let that sink in. He's still got a race to go, but to know he's already a medalist in the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals for 2022. He's going home with some metalware. What colour will it be? It's the key question, and that means we'll see Brian O'Leary and Evan Kylao race it out for the bronze in the B final, which should be coming up next.
It was just absolutely fantastic. Tunisia, as we said earlier, has had a really strong focus on junior development in coastal rowing, which is paying dividends. They had a great World Championship last year, and now in the first of the medal races here, Mohammed Rayan Hafsa, we see a replay there of him finishing. But what's really interesting is that we're seeing, I guess, these smaller framed athletes who are able to keep their rate up, particularly when there is a bit of wave action. It's so important to be able to move quickly, which quite often the bigger, I guess, more typically flat water or classic rowing athletes are not actually suited to doing. So being able to get your rate up, being able to get out of the boat, sprinting up the beach is tending to lend itself to those smaller, more agile, quicker athletes.
Yeah, the rating is actually a really important factor to this. It's not just about long, big strokes. We so often see those that can get their rating up over 45 doing really, really well. And chatting to some of the British athletes earlier in the weekend, you know, that's what they're looking for, and that's what they're training, is how do they get their rating up over 45 and hold that for the duration. It's hard work to do that when you consider dimensions of these boats. For the flat water rowers listening in now, and if you haven't been in a coastal boat, they're a bigger, wider dimension. They take that much more effort to propel through the water because they've got a bigger shape to them. And we heard from Istok Chop earlier that they've been designed to spin quickly and let the water flow off, so when it comes to that turning point right at the far end of the course, that they can go around it nice and promptly. Makes it tricky to keep them straight, because that's the compromise you're making. You're compromising stability and turning effectiveness for your ability to keep it nice and straight, which just throws added steering issues into the mix. And of course, this is a series of pool boats, so they're using boats from Felipe here. So these aren't boats that they've necessarily trained in at home. So they've arrived here in Saundersfoot and will need to get to grips with these specific boats. I'm going to go down to the beach now and hear from Camilla Hadland Horrocks and James Scotty Scott, who I think have collared a couple of athletes here to hear from. A lot of support from the local cadets and the Army and CCF around the area. We've also got the Royal Marine Commandos supporting. They've been clearing rocks from the beach for the last month. Very kind of them, because obviously you don't want to be crashing your beautiful, very expensive coastal rowing boat into a rock when you come careering into the beach. So there's a channel. When you look at low tide later on this afternoon, you'll see they've cleared a channel of rocks.
I'm here with Brian O'Leary, who's about to go head-to-head in the bronze medal match for the under-19 men's solos. Brian, tell us a little bit about your semi-final.
It was a good race. Great Britain, he's a very fast guy. Kept up with him for a bit, but then he took off right at the end, and he had it, so good race for him.
It was a sensational race, and you've also got the under-19 mixed boat coming up as well. Is that going to play into any part of this race at all?
Not really. It gives me more practice on the coastal boats, having two events, but luckily they're on separate days, so I'm not too tired for them.
Yeah, of course, recovery really important, right? You're about to go again in final two here. Good luck and best of luck. Great to have so many USA supporters here on the banks as well, just ahead of this bronze medal match for the under-19 men's solos.
Just a few moments then before we get on to the next race. The crowd's building here on the beach in Saundersfoot. The tide starting to retreat. I was learning yesterday the rule of twelfths. The tide moves at 1/12 in the first, 1/12 of the speed in the first hour, 2/12 in the second, 3/12 in the third, and it accelerates as it moves down the beach. So it's been at the same place for the last couple of hours as the tide has turned, but what we're going to see now is it start to accelerate down. And that's why we've got a break in the racing schedule this morning, because it's better for beach sprint racing to be rowing when the tide is moving as little as possible. So we're going to race up here at the top of the tide, and then as the tide retreats all the way down to the bottom of the beach, we'll get back underway with the next set of races this afternoon, where we'll look at the under-19 women's solo, the mixed quad, and the mixed double. But here, this is for the B final, so bronze medal up for grabs now in the under-19 men's solo. Brian O'Leary and Evan Kailau. Brian O'Leary, a young athlete, finished 4th at the under-17 in the under-17 event at the 2021 US Rowing Southeast Youth Championships in the single. So I think he's going to be an athlete that the US selectors have their eyes on to progress. He's made it into the B final here at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. Certainly is the prospect of beach sprint rowing, the fastest growing variant of our rowing discipline in the world, looking to the 2026 Commonwealth Games. The 2026 Commonwealth Games is a big old event that they'll be trying to make sure that the sport grows into, and then potentially onto the Olympics after that. We'll see whether that gets its place. And there's a lot of selection and qualification also happening at this World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals for the World Beach Games in Bali, Indonesia next year.
1 minute.
That's right, Pete. On Jimbarambe, for those that know Bali well, is where the coastal rowing for the ANOC World Beach Games, ANOC being the Association of National Olympic Committees. Great to see it getting a place in many of these multi-sport events. As you said, the very recent announcement of coastal rowing going into the Commonwealth Games, which will be the first time in 40 years that rowing has been in the Commonwealth Games. So fantastic to see rowing make its reappearance back in the Commonwealth Games. Of course, it was classic rowing in 1986 in Edinburgh, but coastal rowing being the discipline for 2026 in Victoria.
It's also going to the Youth Olympic Games in Dakar, Senegal in 2026. So lots to look forward to as this discipline absolutely explodes across the world.
Attention. Go!
Here we go then, bronze medal up for grabs in the under-19 men's solo. Let's see how they tackle that entry. Evan Kailau having only just raced, he's barely had a second to catch his breath. He's back out there again looking for a medal.
Kailau getting slammed by a couple of waves there, but O'Leary firing out with a high stroke rate. Both athletes passing around the correct side of those first marker buoys.
Oh, look at this. The last 50 meters or so, Kailau has moved up to half a length on the American. Just in the last 50 meters, he's got a much more effortful looking stroke about him. I wonder if he'll be able to hold on to that. You can see the fatigue has really built into him now, because he only just raced 5 minutes ago. But let's see how he handles the turn now. It's like a massive clean and jerk they've got to do, because they're basically stopping the boat dead and then trying to pick it up from standstill once they've done the spin.
And trying to spin this boat. Oh, and we can see, I thought he was struggling with his line there. Kailau absolutely punching that top mark with his bow. I think that tide just starting to really cause some difficulties, and this is why it's so important, that navigational component, that understanding of wave, tide, wind, and how all of that plays into being able to select your course and handle your boat. But it has given O'Leary, I guess, a bit of breathing space here. He does have the lead, but Kyla, absolutely desperate. He is going for it here. He knows that there is a bronze medal at these World Championships on the line.
Yeah, it's not just a tractor pull, this race. The navigation, the steering, absolutely critical. It was what makes them such technical experts in coastal rowing. It's not just a flat-out tractor pull, but this has really opened the door for Brian O'Leary. Now 2 lengths up coming into the last 50 metres before the beach. Let's see how they handle the dismount and if there's a wave opportunity for Kailau to get back in the action. I think doesn't look like either of them have caught a wave on the way into the beach, so it's going to come down to this sprint. I think O'Leary looking good for the bronze medal as it stands now.
Absolute exhaustion for Kailau. He knows that he's not going to get there, unfortunately, but O'Leary sprinting up to the buzzer now. He's going to secure this bronze medal, the first medal to be awarded at this 2022 World Rowing at Beach Sprint Finals.
Great result for the young American there. Shame for Evan Kailau, though. I think he's given us some of the most exciting racing in this boat category through the weekend. I think he had 3 near dives to the buzzer in his races, so you can't fault his efforts because he's certainly giving it absolutely everything to try and progress. But it just wasn't his day here in this last 8 for the under-19 men's solo. The bronze goes to Brian O'Leary, and in a few moments' time, we're going to find out who is going to be the world champion in the under-19 category. It's going to be James Cox of Great Britain or Mohamed Hafsa of Tunisia. Gold and silver up for grabs. You got a feel for Evan Kailau. Not only has he missed out on the medal there, but he had to do 2 races back to back. Basically no rest. I think he had a 3-minute break, and it's a 3-minute rest, so it's a hell of an interval to be working to. I love this overhead shot. You can see the 2 flags on the beach, so that just shows you if you land in the wrong place on the beach and you've got to run all the way back to your flag before heading up towards the buzzer, that can be race ending for you. So whilst you might think you've got a straight line course back into the beach, you've navigated the buoys perfectly. If you land in just 10 meters on the wrong side of your flag, can add 20 meters to the distance you've got to run.
Great Britain, lane 1, Tunisia, lane 2, 3 minutes.
There's about 3 minutes to start now from Final A between Great Britain and Tunisia. Fantastic result here for the Tunisian program. Yet another medal they're going to add to their success over the last couple of years. But who will take the gold medal today? As we're going to hear from the finalists ahead of this A final of the junior men's solo.
Lovely to see the locals turning out to watch the beach sprint finals here in Saundersfoot. A lovely part on the very southwest tip of Wales. Let's hear from Camilla then with James Cox.
I'm here with James Cox of Great Britain, who's about to go up for the gold medal match in the under-19 coastal solo. James, how would it feel to you to win a gold medal on home water?
Pretty good. Just don't want to think about it right now. Just get on with the race and celebrate when I'm done.
And who have you got here supporting here this weekend?
Just with my dad, with family. That's about it really.
Yeah, great to hear them there in the crowd. And one last thing, anything that you're going to focus on in this final?
Same as I've been done. Stay calm. How I did it.
Wonderful. Now, you seem calm. Best of luck to you, James. I'm going to let you head on over to the start now. This is our first gold medal match here at the World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals, and it is set to be an incredible one. Make sure you stay tuned.
Well, he's clearly got his head in the game, thinking of nothing else but this A final now. And there's a lot to play for. You know, he's had quite a consistent approach to the racing so far, not putting a foot wrong whatsoever, and he's won all of his races convincingly to this point. Arguably now this will be the hardest one because Mohamed Hafsa, a fast starter, he certainly pays attention to the dropping of that flag. We've seen some people a little bit slow off the mark, and every second counts, particularly when we see those dives for the finishing buzzer at the end. So A game, and what was your quote earlier, Sarah? Hocus pocus, only focus.
Yeah, no hocus pocus, only focus here. especially with Hafsa of Tunisia on the left-hand side of his screen there. He's ready.
Get ready.
It's interesting to see the different approaches to the footwear as well. Some preferring to go barefoot, some wanting the wetsuit shoes on. He's quick, the Tunisian. He's a couple of steps ahead of James Cox within the first 3 seconds of that. So we'll see how they handle the boat entry now.
Oh, and the Tunisian sculler, wow, he was very quick, but he got hit by that wave there. Maybe James Cox just handling that initial wave a little bit better, but the Tunisian with maybe about 3/4 of a length lead at this very early stage of the race. But he's got a higher stroke rate, and it's really working for him here. In fact, I think he is moving out on James Cox.
Yeah, do you know, he looks different to the previous round, Mohamed Hafsa here. He had a much lower rating in the previous race, so he might have been holding something back in the previous race. I mean, it was a close one, though, him against Heaven Kailau, but he just looks like a different rhythm that he's setting out there at the moment. He's pulling out to a length now ahead of James Cox, I think, coming up to the turning point. Let's see how they tackle this.
So the all-important mark rounding coming up, and it will be the Tunisian who's going to get to the mark first. But they're difficult conditions out there with the tide and the wind, and in fact, both athletes coming around perhaps together. There, James Cox, I mean, he's been nailing those mark roundings all day, and he's made up probably about a length there.
That was exactly what he needed. The young British athlete, there's half a length, if that, separating them. Great side-on shot here from our drone. We'll see how they pass the second slalom boy. It looks as though James Cox has taken the lead now as they come up towards the last 150 into the beach. This is where the fatigue's starting to set in now, the stamina endurance component of this sport. This is the third race that they've done within 45 minutes, and absolutely giving it everything now. They're trying to get some steering guidance from their boat handlers on the beach, absolutely neck and neck.
And I think that Hafsa has the swell behind him. Look at his boat. The afterburners are on now. Hafsa absolutely nailing that wave. He's on the wave and he's going to ride it in. James Cox was in the lead, but Hafsa managed to catch that wave. He's first into the beach. The Tunisian, sensational, riding that wave all the way in. What a turn here. I thought it was all over for him as we see his boat handler guiding him up around the flag, and it will be the Tunisian to take the gold medal.
That was the wave that won it for him. He was half a length down, and riding that wave in was absolutely everything. The Tunisian whole squad here delighted by the result. That's what we love. They can get straight in there and congratulate him. You know, the feeling and atmosphere down there is phenomenal. What a result from Mohamed Hafsa.
Is Hafsa even alive at the bottom of that pylon? Wow, that was absolutely incredible. We could see the wave mounting behind him. His boat started to gather pressure, and I mean, that was about a 3 boat length difference just from getting that wave. And I'm going to say it again, that's coastal rowing, Pete.
That's coastal rowing, exactly. That shows the difference. You know, Mohamed Hafsa, I think he did that in 2 of the 3 races we've just seen him race in this morning. You know, that's no coincidence. Getting that right is technique and experience, knowledge of the water and what it's doing, and being able to use it to your maximum benefit. That's what we love to see. Mohamed Hafsa, a great performance, and in such style as well, to have ridden that wave in to take the gold medal and the World Rowing Coastal Beach Sprint Final Championship title for the Under-19 Coastal Men's Solo. Bit of a recap of some of the racing so far. Might even see some of this. Look at that, he was quick out of the blocks there. Hafsa paying absolute attention and full focus to his start. Let's see how he handled the entry here. We didn't see this entry on the first run through.
Joining us here on the beaches of Saunders.
Well, what a competition that was. The under-19 coastal men's solo won by Mohamed Hafsa of Tunisia, ahead of James Cox of Great Britain for silver, and bronze to Brian O'Leary for the USA. A young man from Tunisia, chuffed to bits, being congratulated by just about everybody he passes. That's what's amazing about the culture and environment down here. He is immediately surrounded by just about anybody on the beach. You know, the access to the athletes here is just so free format, and he's going to be quite a celebrity when he returns to his home country in Tunisia.
Such an incredible final to witness, with the first gold medal, the first world champion being crowned here at the 2022 World Rowing Beach Sprint Finals. So we know that those medals aren't going to be awarded till later this afternoon. We'll bring you all of the medal presentations in succession a bit later this afternoon. From 5:35 local time will be the first medal ceremony. We've got 4 medal ceremonies that will be coming up: the junior men's single scull, the junior women's single scull, the mixed quadruple sculls, and the mixed double sculls. Of course, the junior women's single, the quad, and the double coming up this afternoon.
Well, we've still got a lot to look forward to, haven't we, Sarah? We've got the women's solo up next after our brief break while we let the tide fully retreat down the beach. 300 metres it's got to go, and we'll be having the first quarterfinal for the junior women's solo at 2:40 this afternoon. And then we've got the mixed quad and the mixed double still to look forward to, in that same format that we've just watched there. We'll have all the quarters immediately followed by the semi-finals, immediately followed by the finals.
And you can already see how quickly this tide is starting to retreat now, about 44 metres per half an hour this tide moves, so absolutely massive. So you're going to come back to a very different picture this afternoon when you join us. Of course, our broadcast will be wrapping up in a couple of minutes, but we'll be back again at 2:30 p.m. local time to bring you the remaining 3 finals of the day. See the kites out flying as the breeze is starting to build. We know that breeze is going to build through the day. Pretty stiff breeze predicted for this afternoon and also for tomorrow. So challenging conditions, but as you've said, Pete, conditions that the coastal rowers absolutely love.
They want them. They don't want the tractor pull, because that's an advantage to the flat water rowers. But when you've got conditions, weather, wind, sea, and tide to contest with, that is where the advantage of the coastal rowers really comes to the fore, as we've just seen in an exemplary performance from Mohamed Hafsa of Tunisia, riding the wave in to win his gold medal. Let's have a look at the highlights then, and we'll be back with you later on this afternoon from 2:30.